Well, hello and good morning, afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back. Finally feeling well enough to do another one of these. And today I chose to do the Cecil Motel. Hey, Murder Paula, welcome. Glad you could come by. If you're not familiar with the Cecil Hotel, it is a budget motel that was built on 620 South Main Street in Los Angeles on December 20th, 1924. And this hotel is extremely infamous for a lot of paranormal and criminal activity that's gone on since its inception. Now, it's currently called the Stay on Main, but that just because they changed the name of the motel does not change the past and what is still lingering within this particular motel. Hey Devin, glad you could come by. I'm gonna enjoy doing a bit of a skip along the stuff that goes with this particular hotel or motel. If you're not aware, the place in which the motel is set up or built is called Skid Row. And Skid Row is probably the most, if not one of the most, dangerous places in the world. And it happens to be a 4-mile radius of streets in downtown Los Angeles that is well known for having some of the most disturbing, intense criminal activity you've ever come across. And part of that is because there are 10,000 at least homeless people that are living there currently, if not more. And that's pretty scary because what happens is people that aren't aware of Skid Row and how downtown LA is, they come to stay at the Cecil Motel because it's cheap. It's really cheap in comparison to most places down in downtown LA. And they think they're perfectly safe. They're going to be just fine. But once you step out of that motel, you are right in the middle of where all the homeless programs and camps are, which is extremely scary because most of these people are drug addicts. They're generally, if not drug addicts, they're mentally unwell and they need mental help, which they can't get because they're homeless. Circle. It's a big old fucking circle. Anyways, yeah. There's a lot that goes along with this, just with the area that it's in and what's happened within that hotel. Recently, they did a series on it and one of the mysterious deaths that has occurred in that hotel. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why it's well known, and one of which is a murder that I'm going to get into later. That's part of it. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but there is a series on Netflix now that goes into that particular crime. If you want to go look at that, I highly suggest it. I've watched most of it to this point, and it's really interesting hearing from people who lived in that area, lived in the motel for a long period of time, because there are several floors that are dedicated to long-term residents. It's usually those that are of criminal origin. But as I was stating, the hotel was built in 1924 by three particular hotel tycoons: William Banks Hanner, Charles L. Dix, and Robert H. Shops. And they wanted this to be a tourist destination where most people who want to come to downtown LA can stay for cheap, and they'd make a whole lot of money on it. And that worked out for a while. At the time, though, this hotel was extremely expensive for the time, and it took about $1.5 million to complete and build this particular hotel. What it's also known for is how beautiful the lobby for this hotel is, because it's all marble with stained glass windows. There are potted palms everywhere. It's alabaster statues there. It's gorgeous. It's currently closed right now. They're trying to renovate it and fix it, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the case. It is, but anyways, even though it was about 1.5 million to build, it was 2.5 million to start the hotel and get it up and running. Hey, Muskie Mike, how you doing, my friend? Yeah, I would not suggest it, Devin, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna agree once I've gone over pretty much everything there is to know about the motel at a glance. This hotel, when it was opened up, was very profitable for about 5 years until the Great Depression happened. And then it took a hot minute for it to get back on its feet again in the 1940s. And that's when a lot of stuff started to go bad, because that's when Skid Row became a big issue. Skid Row was basically made because the government in Los Angeles didn't want tourists to see how dense the homeless population is, and they wanted to quarantine all of those people into one spot where all of the services are for that particular type of people. And unfortunately, the Cecil Motel is right in the middle of that. So, they are also known for this big advertisement on the side of it that's has all of the pricing on it, and it's extremely cheap. It's extremely cheap in comparison to most places. I think at one time it was like $85 a night, which is really cheap for a hotel in downtown LA, unless you want to go to like a Motel 6 or something like that. And a lot of people don't want to do that if they don't have to. In 2007, it was refurbished and new owners took over. The name of the hotel was changed to Stay on Main, which I brought up earlier, which had separate recreational areas, but it still went under the Cecil Motel or hotel online. It was under the same official website. In 2014, the hotel was sold to New York City hotelier. It's a fucking weird hotelier, whatever. Richard Bourne for $30 million. And then sold again to a New York-based firm called Simon Barron Development, which had gotten the 99-year ground lease on the property. Eventually, the president, Matt Barron, said he wanted to preserve the architectural and historical significance of this hotel because it has been around for so long. It's been around for almost 100 years now. So you'd have to say that even if it's got a sordid past to it, and there's still going to be more just gross things that come along with it. It's still going to carry a lot of significance to it because of how old it is. It was closed in 2017 for renovation, and it's slated to be opened again sometime this year. Not sure when. But in 2017, February 2017, the LA City Council voted and deemed the Cecil Hotel a historic cultural monument, meaning that it can't be touched for the foreseeable future because it is now considered a landmark for Los Angeles, and rightfully so. Now, here comes the fun part. Now that I've gotten over the itty bitty bits of this thing, let's get into the fun. And that is the numerous deaths, suicides, creepy behavior shit that has gone on in that hotel since its inception. And you could say that it was fine for about 3 years, until January 22nd, 1927, when the very first suicide occurred in that hotel. Oh boy. Not even 2 years and it's already got a problem. Well, 3 years, I guess you could say. The very first suicide was 52-year-old Percy Ormond Cook, who died of a gunshot wound to the head while inside his hotel room after failing to reunite with his wife and child. Oddly, though, the Times reported that he was rushed to receiving hospital with a slim chance of survival, he died that same night. That's the first one. Didn't die in the hotel from what is recorded. But the next one happened 4 years later, a little over 4 years later, on November 19th, 1931, when 46-year-old W.K. Norton died in his hotel room via poison capsules. So this particular Manhattan Beach resident decided he was going to check into the hotel under an alias, the first of which a week earlier was James Willies from Chicago. So he's going there under a nickname. Something was going on. I don't know exactly what. I'll probably look into it and do another stream on the more detailed stuff. But this particular person ingested enough poison capsules to die in his room and was found later that night. The third one, it was a little less than a year later when 25-year-old Benjamin Dodick committed suicide by gunshot to the head. Benjamin was found by a maid in his room and did not leave a suicide note. So that's 3 suicides already. Fuck. Why is it... I don't know why it's... YouTube, fix your shit. Because I'm fine over here. God. But there's 3 already. There's 3 suicides, 2 of which are gunshots to the head. First is ingested poison. 2 of the 3 were found dead in their hotel rooms. The next was in July 1934, when Sergeant Louis D. Borden, 53 years old, slit his throat while in his hotel room. He was a former Army Medical Corps sergeant and was found dead in his room, having slashed his throat with a razor. He left several notes, one of which cited poor health as the reason for his suicide. So basically, this particular, and I'm not shocked by this. This was towards the beginning of World War II. This is the first half of the Great Depression period. I'm not shocked that somebody would be that suicidal over the situation that they're in, especially if mental health is a big reason as to why that happened. Yeah, you don't want to be a maid in the Cecil Hotel. You also don't want to be any kind of employee at the Cecil Hotel, and we'll go over why a little bit later. The first death that wasn't... It says death because they aren't sure if it was a suicide or if it was a murder. 3 years later, in March 1937, Grace E. Magro fell from the 9th story window. Her fall was broken by some wires on the way down that wrapped around her body. She later died at the now demolished Georgia Street Receiving Hospital, and police were unable to determine whether or not this was an accident or suicide. So I'm just going to say death. We don't know exactly what the cause was for this one. And oh, there's more. That's just a few. The next one was a little less than a year later when 35-year-old Ray Thompson also fell from the top floor and was found on a skylight of a neighboring building. He'd been staying at the Cecil Hotel for several weeks and was a United States Marine Corps fireman. Again, it says death because they're not sure whether or not this was a suicide or this was accidental. And we'll probably never know. Next is another military person. Erwin C. Neblett, 39 years old, died in May 1939 and was found dead in his room after ingesting poison. I'm assuming that's a suicide, but we're not totally sure. It looks like it might just be... It could be a murder, it could be a suicide, not sure. And not surprised. This one is a suicide. In January 1940, Dorothy Seeger, 45 years old, was a teacher and had been found dead after ingesting poison while staying at the Cecil Hotel, and was found to be near death when they were found. There isn't any other reports after that, but her death is listed as January 12th, 1940 on findadeath.com. Seems like a running theme indeed. They're gonna need more than a priest. They're gonna need more than a fucking priest for that place. And this doesn't include a lot of the drug deaths and stuff like that. There's so much death. So much death. Our next one is definitely considered a murder in September 1944. And was the death of Dorothy Jean Purcell. Who was 19 at the time. And also was pregnant at the time. She was sharing a room with her boyfriend, shoe salesman Ben Levine, who was 38, and had no idea she was pregnant at the time, but went into labor. Actually, no, I'm sorry, the son was the one that died, and she's the one that's to blame. So apparently she didn't know she was pregnant, and she was staying in the room with her boyfriend. While he was asleep, she took the baby to the bathroom, or she gave birth to the baby in the bathroom, and she thought the baby was dead, so she threw it out the window, and it landed on the roof of an adjacent building. The hotel was made in 1924, so it's almost 100 years old at this point, dead end. So yeah, there's a lot that goes on with this. But this one apparently... Yeah, so basically, Dorothy Jean Purcell gave birth in the hotel after not knowing she was pregnant, which I don't understand. Thought the baby was dead once it was born, and threw it out the window because she didn't want to wake up her boyfriend. She was inevitably charged with murder, and 3 psychiatrists testified she was mentally confused at the time of the incident. So when she was given the verdict of her trial in January 1945, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity. Yes, out the window. Threw it out the window and it landed on another building. Yeah. We have another death by falling from building. In November 1947, when 35-year-old Robert Smith jumped out of the 7th floor window of the Cecil Hotel. Mind you, this hotel is very, very tall. I hate to be the neighbor of this place. Oh yeah. I'll bet you the homeless population sees this shit all the time. It's not surprising, I'll bet. We have another fall from building in October 22nd, 1954, when 55-year-old Helen Gurney, who was a stationary firm employee, jumped from the window of the her seventh floor room and landed on top of Cecil's marquee. She'd also registered under a false alias, which seems to be another running theme for this particular... Yeah, running theme there. Running theme. Oh, excuse me. Coffee hasn't kicked in. The next death was another fall from building in February 11th, 1962, when Julia Frances Moore, 50 years old, jumped from her 8th floor room window and landed on the second story interior light well. There was no suicide note, and among her possessions was a bus ticket to St. Louis, 59 cents in change, and an Illinois bank book showing a balance of $1,800. So it seems like this has become a place that people are going to die. There was a second suicide via jumping from building by actually two of them. It looks like on the same day, on October 12th, 1962, when Pauline Pauline Otten and George Giannini, 165, 127, jumped from this one's interesting. Pauline Otten was the one that jumped from the building, from her 9th floor room after getting in an argument with her estranged husband, Dewey. And he'd left the room just before her suicide. When Otten landed, she landed on a pedestrian, George Giannini, who was 65, and they both died instantly. There were no witnesses, and police thought that Otten and Giannini committed suicide together initially, but it was determined that Giannini had his hands in his pockets at the time of the death, and he was still wearing shoes. Had he jumped, shoes would have likely fallen off to the fall or upon impact, and his hands wouldn't have been in his pockets. So they basically determined that homeboy died via falling object, meaning falling body. Jesus. Come on, YouTube, get your shit together. Seriously. Next death was a little less than 2 years later, and this was an actual murder of Pigeon Goldie Osgood, who was 65. She was a hotel worker and a retired telephone operator who was found raped, stabbed, beaten, and had her room ransacked. And dead. She was found dead. So she's basically found raped, stabbed, beaten, and dead, with her room being ransacked. She was known in the area and earned her nickname because she fed birds in the nearby Pershing Square. Near her body was the LA Dodgers cap she always wore and a paper sack full of birdseed. Hours after the murder, her suspected murderer, Jack B. Ellinger? Sorry, I don't know how to fucking say that name. Ellinger was found walking through Pershing Square in bloodstained clothing. He was arrested and charged with the murder, but was later cleared of the crime, and their murder remains unsolved. There's a full-blown murder right there. That's two. That's two murders. One of a baby, and one of an elderly woman. Next one was in December 20th, 1975, with another fall from building of an Allison Lowell, who is approximately 23. She's still unidentified, probably because she was a transient and nobody really cared about her, unfortunately. She jumped from her 12th floor window and landed on the Cecil second floor roof. She registered on December 16th under the name Allison Lowell and was staying in room 327. So there's another room for you. Maybe she was visited by a ghost and decided she wanted to jump because she was so scared. I don't know. Maybe. Ooh, this one was just before I was born. September 1st, 1982. There's no name for it, but it's another fall from a building. They were approximately 20 to 30 years old. The body of an African-American man was found in the alley behind the Cecil. Police said he'd either fallen, jumped, or been pushed from the hotel's 15th floor. And this particular person has never been identified to this day. Ooh, that's creepy. I don't like that at all. And here comes the good one. The one this is most famous for. February 19th, 2013. Died of unknown causes. Elisa Lam, 21, was found naked in the water supply tanks of the hotel on the hotel roof. She had gone missing almost 3 weeks earlier on the 31st of January 2013, and her decomposing body was discovered by a maintenance worker in one of the rooftop water tanks after guests had complained about low water pressure and water that tasted funny. So people have been drinking dead body juices. Oh, yeah. Yuck. Video surveillance footage taken from inside the elevator shortly before her disappearance showed her acting strangely, pressing multiple elevator buttons, hiding in the corner of the elevator, and waving her arms wildly, causing a widespread speculation about the cause of death. Elevator video was released. There are a lot of theories that are surrounding the death. She was reported to have BPD, or bipolar disorder, for which she was prescribed multiple medications, and could have contributed to a death, as well as a strange behavior in the elevator. I don't know how they could go about saying this, but authorities later ruled Lam's death as an accidental drowning, which makes no sense if you know a lot of the information surrounding this particular death. There's no way that was accidental drowning. I am going to go ahead and try to pull up the video for you guys. So you can see just what we're talking about when it comes to the surveillance video. And you can judge for yourselves whether or not something fishy was going down. And begin. This is her going into the hotel. Into the elevator. You can see her pushing a bunch of buttons. She's in the corner, as we were talking about. She's looking outside of the... This is really weird. Like, she looks scared. Like something's going on. She's trying to stay out of sight. This is really weird. I've seen this before, but it's just... There's no way. There's absolutely no way she accidentally fell into that water tank. Yeah, the manager at the time is definitely sus as fuck. It's not gonna close if you're standing in the middle of it, girl. Something's wrong. Something is very wrong here. This is the kind of behavior you see with homeless people who are very much mentally deranged. This is really weird. It's really, really weird. She's losing it. You can tell. This makes no sense. Like, none of this behavior seems at all normal. She could have been on drugs. She was in that area where she could have gotten it. She obviously could get a hold of that. This is really weird. This seems like very schizophrenic behavior. And that's putting it lightly. Very much putting it lightly. There you go. There's that footage. Very creepy. Doesn't make a lot of sense. And it does look like she's talking to someone. Very, very, very plausible that she could have been on drugs at the time, but I highly doubt that that was the entirety of it. The last death that we have is of an unknown person, believed to be 28, who died on June 13, 2015. It's believed that this person committed suicide by jumping from the hotel, even though that the county coroner from Los Angeles informed LA Times that the cause of death can't be determined. So there's the list of known deaths associated with the Cecil Hotel. However, there are some other really weird little facts that are associated with this. And this is going to be a short stream because there's a lot of stuff that I just can't get into right now without getting a lot more information. I think at some point I will cover the death of Miss Lam, but I don't know how I will go about do that, if I'm going to do it in a video or another stream. We'll just have to see. But the last thing I want to go over is that there are some really freaky coincidences. One of which being that there are 2 different serial killers that are known for staying at this hotel. One of which is the very well-known Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. He stayed in the room for $14 a night in 1985. Yeah. So it's believed that he was able to remain under the radar because of the seedy reputation that surrounds the Cecil Hotel. And it's believed that Ramirez had come and gone from that hotel covered in blood. And nobody said anything because of how fucked up that hotel was. And there's reasons for that. If you are staying at that hotel, you are risking your life, from what I've seen and heard of that hotel. The second serial killer that stayed there was Jack Unterweger, who had stayed in that hotel in 1991 and killed 3 Los Angeles sex workers during the time there. It's believed that he had been convicted of murder prior to his staying at the hotel in early 1991, but was believed to be rehabilitated and then went on to kill 9 more people. The last little detail I'm going to go over that's pretty interesting is that of the actress Elizabeth Short. Now, if you're not aware of who Elizabeth Short is, you need to look it up, because she is the victim of one of the most iconic unsolved murders of all time, and that is the Black Dahlia. Apparently, there's also connection to Lam's 2013 death. Elizabeth Short is believed to have been seen at the nearby Biltmore Hotel before her death, and it's indicated that she'd visited the bar at Cecil Hotel shortly before she died. The connection to Lam is that her death apparently involved a suspect who previously visited the hotel and posted a video of themselves with an image of Short in the background, which is also something that happened with the Lam death. There's apparently a picture of from possibly the suspect with Lam in the background. So there's some really weird shit that's going on. Hey Sherry, came in towards the end, but I'm gonna finish this up a little bit. This hotel is so iconic for this stuff that it is the inspiration for my favorite season of American Horror Story, and that is American Horror Story Hotel, that aired in 2015 and 2016. It wasn't filmed on site, but there are a lot of parallels that are between Hotel Cortez and Hotel Cecil, or Cecil Hotel. And the showrunner Ryan Murphy has said that is absolutely one of the reasons why, one of the reasons behind the particular season and where it was at. I haven't looked into this yet, I should, but there's a Ghost Adventures Cecil Hotel that aired this year and on January 4th and is on Discovery Plus, but that's all of the basic information I have regarding the Cecil Hotel. It's really fucking creepy. But if you want to get more information about the Lam case, you would probably want to go look at the Netflix documentary, Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. If you haven't looked at that, I would do so. It's really interesting. And I haven't watched it all yet, but so far I'm really, really interested in that. There are a couple of things that I was curious about. I was going to talk about. They were interesting that I found. There were facts. Apparently, like I was saying, the bottom two floors of the Cecil Hotel are for long-term residents. They usually, the Stay On Main Youth Hostel is from floors 4 to 6, and floor 7 and above were Cecil Hotel rooms. According to some people who lived there for a long time, and this is in the Netflix documentary, if you stayed anywhere higher than the 6th floor, you are risking your life. Period. It's apparently been said that there were 1 to 3 911 calls a day at the Cecil Hotel. And the particular manager that was working there during the time of Lam's death, Price, she admits that there were about 80 deaths in that hotel during her tenure. And she'd been there for 10 years. It's 80 deaths. But that's pretty much everything I've got. That's, 80 in 10 years. And I only went over the ones that I know of that have been recorded. Yeah. But I will probably start calling it now. Thank you guys for coming by and watching and listening to the little bit tidbits of information that I know. I might come back later and go over the Elisa Lam murder in detail. I'm not sure, but we will have to figure that out later. And with that, I'm going to say have a good rest of your day, have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and sweet nightmares.